Look, I get it. It's time for a new family car. Maybe you're upsizing, but the thing is, you're coming out of a hot hatch or an older sedan, something cool you love to drive. But all brands want to sell you these days are SUVs, and that's just not for you. Well, not this brand. This is the new Skoda Superb, and it sits above the Octavia in the brand's sedan and wagon range as kind of its hero product. But could this be the right non-SUV for you and your family? Well, let's find out.
Now, it's important to note that this version of the Superb isn't available in Australia just yet, so we don't have hard pricing, nor do we have local spec for you. But the Euro spec car that we're looking at for this review is fairly indicative of what we might see in Australia.
Now, for context, the current generation Superb sold in Australia starts from around $70,000, but that is drive away. When this new one arrives in sort of Q2 of 2025, what you can expect is a little bit of a bump in standard equipment, but possibly also a jump in pricing. But don't expect it to stray too far from where the current car is positioned.
What's new this time around? An even nicer design on the inside with a big jump in tech. While again, final specs are yet to be locked in, it wouldn't be unsurprising to see leather seats with power adjust and heating, the 13-inch multimedia screen and 10.25-inch digital instrument cluster, wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, tri-zone climate control, matrix LED headlights, new adaptive suspension and drive modes, and of course, a fully equipped safety suite. What's missing? Well, Australian Skodas won't get the full array of connected services available here in Europe, and there won't be the option of even mild hybrid powertrains either. So while it might continue to be quite expensive, it is a somewhat unique proposition in the Australian market, being a bit larger and more luxurious than mainstream rivals like the Toyota Camry, Mazda 6, Hyundai Sonata or Honda Accord, competing on the price front at least with more lavish offerings like the Lexus ES and Volvo S60.
Now for this new 2025 version, there are a whole bunch of really small design tweaks, but it's worth remembering, for all its quirkiness, Skoda does stick to a bit of a conservative styling formula, especially for its core range of vehicles.
In the middle, I reckon it looks fresh but understated, even a little stately with its extra length and width, looking a fair bit more imposing than its rivals from Japan and Korea. Although it is worth reminding you that the Superb and Octavia are more important than ever now that Volkswagen will be leaving this segment behind with the end of the Passat range. Key changes include more sleek and compact light fittings front and rear, new wheel designs and a tweaked grille. Inside, some of the most notable upgrades are the new screens and software, but there's also a more elegant treatment for the dash with even more soft touch surfaces than it had before.
It all looks and feels really plush and lovely in here, and as well I love the addition of that design through the vents running behind all the screens here. It's a really nice place to be. There are some new elements and some you might be familiar with. Some you might be familiar with, like this two-spoke steering wheel, also works really well. You would have seen this in Skodas like the Kamiq before. You've got the virtual digital display there. That's also been updated with the new software suite, so it looks really good too. And obviously, there's the headline piece, which is this new massive touchscreen with faster, more intuitive software, which is really appreciated. Like other Volkswagen products that have new big screens like this, it kind of is a victim of its own success in that the resolution is so high that some of the buttons are a little bit small to jab at. But that brings us to the next point about this interior, which is maybe the best thing that Volkswagen Group and by extension Skoda has done in a long time, and that's reintroduce a lovely set of dials. These are all multi-function. They've got several functions that you sort of press on them to click through, and really nice color screens so you can see what they're doing at any given time. And there's a few shortcut buttons hidden in behind them as well. It just makes this car so much easier to use when you're busy concentrating on the road. Now this does bring us to practicality, and it's a Skoda, so there should be a lot of it. As you can see, I've got heaps of room. I'm 182 centimeters tall and I fit perfectly fine in here. There's huge sort of bottle holders in the doors here. There's little integrated bins. There's a wireless phone charger up front, pairs nicely with wireless Apple CarPlay. Two quite versatile bottle holders with adjustable ridges on the side. A little slot for your key there, and as you open this sort of double-edged center console up, you also get this clever little thing. It's for cleaning the touchscreen. I haven't seen that in any car ever before, and I think most cars probably need this. There's also some removable trays in here, so you can store all sorts of different shapes and sizes of devices. There's a little sort of card holder for a parking pass or something. There's even a sunglass holder hidden down there, and there's plenty of room in there if you were to take all of those things out. Let's go take a look in the back seat. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, but the Superb has an enormous wheelbase, and that's no more evident than here in the back seat. Again, 182 centimeters tall, that's behind my own driving position, and just look at the amount of room I have for my knees. That's incredible. And there's plenty of room for my feet as well. The only downside being that this platform does necessitate an all-wheel drive system, obviously, and that means having a drive shaft coming through there, and it does mean that this center position is a little cramped for an adult if you have a third person putting their feet down there. You do get rear heated seats in this spec. There's a sort of climate zone in the back with adjustable temperature, 2 USB ports, adjustable vents. There's this weird thing, I don't know if this is an accessory or whether it comes with the car or not, but it's like a little blanket with a holder thing that sort of sits in the compartment on the back of the seat. And you also get these other weird touches, like a little tablet holder there, probably great for kids. You've got integrated blinds in the windows too. That saves you the effort of getting nasty aftermarket ones. You've got big bottle holders in the doors, and in the drop-down armrest, there's a ski port, very European, and a little fold-out thing. That's really nice, with something to hold a book or a phone or a tablet on, and 2 more cup holders in there as well.
The sedan version still offers an impressive volume of 645 litres in the boot, while the wagon adds back the benefits of a hatch opening with even more room at 690 litres with the second row of seats up. That's easily bigger than most mid-size SUVs. We won't talk towing specs just yet, as these are subject to change with Australian regulations and engine specs, so tune back in for these details closer to the Superb's local launch.
Now, in Europe, there are an array of engine choices you can get in the new Superb. There's even a quite compelling plug-in hybrid. But because this car is set to be quite a niche offering in Australia, it will continue to be offered with just one 2-litre turbocharged power plant. See the tweak figures for that on your screen now.
There's no word on adding a hybrid of any kind for our market, but Skoda's Volkswagen Group engines are still compliant with at least the first few stages of Australia's just introduced new vehicle emissions laws. There are some other major changes underneath. The Superb has now been merged onto the upgraded MQB Evo platform, which comes with tweaks to chassis rigidity and suspension, as well as new versions of the adaptive dampers.
Now, for fuel consumption, it's hard to give you an official number because it simply hasn't been calculated yet, but don't expect that to stray too far from the current 8 litres to 100 kilometres the petrol turbo already sold in Australia gets. We can't give you an as-tested number today either, because this one here is a Euro market 2-litre diesel.
It's worth noting overseas there is a plug-in hybrid which won't come to Australia, at least not initially. It can trim usage as low as 0.4 litres to 100 k's with a massive battery pack which can allow for up to 134 kilometres of driving range on electric power.
Now look, I don't want to get on my high horse about buying a sedan or a wagon over an SUV because they're always better, but in this case, the Superb is always better. I've just driven this car back to back with the new Kodiaq as well, which shares a lot of the same hardware, and the difference is night and day. This car is so nice to drive in comparison. It's nice and low to the ground, it's hunkered down, it's wide, you can feel the extra prowess of the wheelbase of this car as well. It really feels like something special to drive in today's era of SUVs. And this extends to not just the fact that it's so low to the ground and wide and long, it's also the fact that it's got a beautiful steering tune, a nicely put together transmission and engine combination. Even in this diesel, I will say that the diesel does have a little bit of additional lag, which isn't so great. But we do know that the petrol that will eventually come with this car in Australia is a known quantity at being really nice to drive, and again, playing really nicely with this wet clutch, dual clutch auto. The biggest upgrade though for the Superb this time around is the fact that the platform has been upgraded. Yes, the car looks largely the same from the outside, but there are some pretty significant changes when it comes to its suspension and chassis rigidity and things like this underneath. It's now gone onto the MQB Evo platform, which is the latest version of this platform, and you can really tell the difference. The ride this time around is much smoother. The way it leans into corners is even better. It's just all round a really lovely car to drive. And here's the thing, If you don't have the budget that stretches all the way to $70-something thousand that this car will end up costing by the time it arrives in Australia, you can always buy the Octavia, which is basically the same thing but smaller. It also scores lots of other little tweaks which just make it a little bit more luxurious this time around, and that's in things like the level of refinement in here. Not a whole lot of engine noise enters the cabin, not a whole lot of tyre roar enters the cabin. There may be a few little small changes to Australian spec cars that may affect that, so do make sure to check back for the Australian launch review for more on that in 2025. But this car that we're testing here, even with the diesel engine, it's nice and quiet, super smooth, elegant, refined. I really like it. And honestly, if you're looking at an SUV, don't. Get one of these.
The answer to safety is yes. The Superb gets the full list of kit you might expect for a European sedan, and while it's true that it's becoming more difficult to secure a coveted maximum 5-star ANCAP safety rating, thanks to Skoda Australia sourcing its cars from the home factory in Europe, there's fewer production changes to worry about, so any Euro ANCAP ratings stand a better chance of transferring across.
Obviously, as we'll get a really high spec car in Australia, you can expect the lot, and that's things like auto emergency braking, lane keep assist, adaptive cruise control, all these sorts of things. But the important thing to know is they're all really quite nicely tuned. I have had the lane keep assist sort of bite in every now and again, but it hasn't been too aggressive like a lot of rival cars can be with these new age safety systems. And that's important because it doesn't interfere with this car's best trait, and that's the driving experience. So when it comes to ownership, you can expect Skoda to continue with its current 7-year and unlimited kilometre warranty. It's the first European brand to offer such a warranty, and honestly, that's excellent. You can also expect things like the usual prepaid service pack at the time of purchase, which is usually pretty good value again for a European car, and stuff like roadside assist, but again, check back at this car's local launch in 2025 for all the details. If you're part of this endangered species which still wants to drive a sedan or a wagon and your budget stretches this far, it doesn't get much better than the Skoda Superb. It's classy, it's sophisticated, it's refined, it's not half bad in a straight line, and it'll give you a bit of fun in the corners too. It's certainly more interesting than a Toyota Camry, and it's more modern than something like a Mazda 6. Now, as this car isn't the final spec we will eventually see in Australia, make sure to check back in 2025 for our final verdict on it. But for now, remember to check out our full written review and all of our Skoda news over at carsguide.com.au.